Hello, everybody. How are you today? Hope you're doing good. My glasses are falling off my face. Um, we have Claire. Hey, Claire. How are you? Right on time. Hold on, let me pin you, Claire. 1 second. Pin. Got it. Okay. Claire, where's she at? We have Claire Summers from Fashion Bomb Daily. Very excited. Hey, Erica.
Hi,
Hi,
David.
Claire. How are you?
I'm so good. I love your jacket.
Thank you. I wore it for you.
Thank you.
Um, you look
Looking
you
out.
look amazing.
Thank you. Just trying to stay positive, upbeat, happy,
Good.
feeling blessed. How are
Good.
you? How's LA?
Good, same thing. Trying to stay really focused on everything that's kind of important right now and things that are, not getting distracted by anything that's not necessary at this moment. Things that are really important are my focus right now. So, you mean?
Yes, indeed,
Um,
indeed.
I'm glad we could talk. I have done these talks for about 2 months, and I had, always wanted to ask you to come on here. We talk about a lot of cultural things, but I thought now I've kind of shifted the gears a bit, to talk about things that are much more important, which are, all these social justice issues and things, these race issues. So today I invite you to come to talk about the lack of diversity in fashion, as you know. So. But I want to talk, to you first and talk, maybe people don't really know your whole story and things. But first, I do want to, before we start, you've always been so supportive of me, and I really appreciate that. You've always been really supportive of me. So,
Damon, I love you. And actually, right before this call, I was going through my phone and deleting all these old pictures because for some reason my phone is always like the storage is
oh,
full on my
yeah,
phone.
yeah,
And
I
I
get
was
it.
like, we have so many great memories from the No Basics brunch. Like to this
Yeah,
day, people are still like, can we do another No Basics brunch? And
yeah.
like our fun themes and all of that. Like we have had a really good run. So thank you for having me on your show. I've been watching a few. I'm
Okay.
prepared, you know, as prepared
Well,
as
like I
I can
said,
be.
I do want to thank you for being always so supportive of me. But also, you've always been a super focused person to me. You've always been really focused. You don't, and since I've known you, you kind of don't get, you've always been really focused on your goal. So kudos to you on that as well. So, I mean,
Thank you. I try. I am
um,
a Caribbean woman, Caribbean American, and I've got this work ethic. That's all
yeah,
I've got. I will put my nose down and just get to work, and that's what
you
I
know,
do.
and, work ethic is, I think, something I admire most in people. Period. I admire people's work ethic probably at the top of their list. I mean,
Hmm.
um, okay, so you're from Atlanta, right? You were born in Atlanta?
No, I was born in Brooklyn, and I moved to Stone Mountain, Georgia. In I won't say the year, but I was 9 years old. So I grew up in Atlanta, and then I went
Good.
to college in Boston. I went to Harvard, and then I was bit by the northeastern bug, and so I stayed up here and moved to New York. I've been in New York since 2004. I lived in Paris for 2 years, but I've been in New York for most of the time.
So you were raised in Atlanta primarily, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, those years?
9 to
Georgia.
18,
Georgia, yeah.
raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah.
So I always think it's really interesting to find out people, because those are really like, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are very formative years in my head, and it really portrays who the person will become usually as an adult in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what were your goals, I guess, when you were 10, let's say?
I don't know if I had goals. I think looking back, I've always loved to write. I
Yeah.
have journals dating back to when I was 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yep.
So I would write every single day in my journals. And now I try to write every month because writing for me is like therapy. It's
Yeah.
cathartic. It helps me get all my words out onto a piece of paper. So that was really it. And my goal, I always would like to say that I wanted to be an international businesswoman because my dad's a pilot. So I've been flying and on planes since I was like 2 years old. And so
Yeah.
I just wanted to have some sort of international aspect where I was just zipping around on a plane. And
Yeah.
now I actually do have that job. I find myself not right now, but generally speaking, you know, I go abroad for Fashion Week. We've seen each other in Paris a few times. I've gone to Fashion Week in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago and the Bahamas, like all sorts of amazing places. So it's just kind of strange how I even feel now I know what my purpose in life was. I didn't always know that, but there are little clues when you're younger of what you're going to become later on.
Did you have any, what were your fashion influences as like a young person, very young person, 10, 11, 12, those years, you know?
I remember one time, I think it was Rainbow Bright.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Listen, I remember one time I wanted to go to school in some pajamas, some like striped, colorful rainbow pajamas, and my mom was like, take that off. And I think that was the first time. But as a teenager, honestly, it was like Brandy. I loved Brandy. I loved seeing Brandy on the cover of 17. I used to always subscribe to different magazines, and I was like, yes, there's a girl that looks like me, and she's so cute. And I would literally like, I remember I have my journals to this day. Sometimes I go back and I read them, but I would
someone asked do you still have your journals? Someone just asked.
I still have my journals, yeah. And I would write down like, okay, ribbed shirt, leather skirt. Like I would watch music videos and create shopping lists, and then go to the mall, go to Contempo Casuals, I was in the mall. I'm like,
we all were in the mall, first of all.
Yeah, my heart breaks that the mall culture is over, basically.
I know.
It seems like it's over, but that was like my jam. I used to love that, so.
So primarily sounds like music and music videos were your kind of fashion influences, which were mine as well, but you mean?
Yeah.
Brandy, just curious.
Aaliyah. I actually went through a phase, you probably wouldn't believe this, but I went through a tomboy phase where I was like sagging my jeans and
Aaliyah, TLC, yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense during that time. Right now, maybe, you know, but like during that time, you know.
Now I'm like in stilettos all the time, but I did have.
I know you are.
I was like in my brother's closet, and he would beat me out of the closet. He was very mean. But anyway.
So you went to Harvard, and then what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I went to Harvard, majored in French and African American studies. I loved it. I loved Harvard.
Yeah.
I mean, I have this great group of friends I still have to this day. For me, I always find like a clique, a group of girls that I hang out with all the time. And, you know, at the time I wanted to major in French because I was obsessed with French for whatever reason. And then Harvard at the time, it had Cornel West, Henry Louis Gates, Evelyn Higginbotham. These are like real thought leaders in terms of African American history and culture, and I felt like that was really missing from what I was learning in high school, and that's why I decided to major in African American studies. And I learned about the imbalanced representation of people of color in the media, and I decided that I wasn't the typical Harvard student. You know, when I was growing up, I was a cheerleader, and I like to have fun. Like a lot of people I went to school with, God bless them, but they're dorks. They're like the typical dorks, valedictorian, salutatorian, and that was not me. I always did really well in school, but I was like, I was having fun. So I was like, what kind of fun career can I go into? And I was like, okay, the media industry, that would be great. And if there's this issue of diversity and representation in media, then I would be one of those people behind the scenes that would affect change. And I really embarked on this career very naive and not understanding how the media works and the nepotism and so many different things I was not ready for. I just thought that if I just did the work and if I had the right resume, that the world would open up before me, and it really wasn't quite the case. Yeah.
So after school, what was your next move?
So I went home to Atlanta for a little bit because I'd done a bunch of internships in TV at PBS and NBC, but that wasn't enough for me to get a job as a producer, like entry-level job as a producer in New York. And so I went back to Atlanta. My parents were like, stop playing around. I went back to Atlanta. I was hanging out, and long story short, I got my first internship at Upscale magazine, and I thought I wanted to work in politics. They only had an opening in the fashion and beauty department. That's where everything kicked off. It was an unpaid internship. I made $0, 0 cents. I think the only thing they ever gave me during that time was like some chicken wings and like some free beauty products. But I just discovered this love and a knack for writing, and I found out that I really liked it. And then doing my research, I found out New York is the home of media, and all my friends were in New York. And so I moved up to New York. I couldn't do the free internship in New York, so I just researched which internships were paid. And so I found New York Magazine, Newsweek, and The Nation, and I applied to all three. I got all three, and so my
amazing.
Yeah, you know.
Well, first of all, not to cut you off, but I could totally see you in politics. I never knew that about you. That's interesting. I could see you in politics.
I wanted to be in politics.
I could see that.
Fashion and beauty was calling my name, so here I am.
So, well, what job did you take? You said you got all three, and then what job did you take?
The first one I did was New York Magazine, because I was like, I'm moving to New York, and it's kind of like a culture, societal, like a social news magazine. And so I was like, okay, let me work there. That should be fun. And so that's where I went.
And how old were you at the time? Like 22, 23? How old were you?
I think I was 20.
20, okay. Just curious, yeah.
Yeah.
And then how was that experience?
So I was opening, I had this Ivy League degree with honors, and I was opening mail and passing out faxes. I was begging people to give me work. I would just send like these company-wide emails like, can I help with something? And I think for the most part, I got some small assignments, but there was this one writer, I'll never forget his name, Steve Fishman. He took me under his wing. I think I saw him one day in the elevator bank, and I was like, I'm the intern, please give me some work. And so he gave me, this was around 9/11, and so we did the story on 9/11 wives and how they were coping with everything. But it was a really hard assignment. Like, I had to call these people up and ask them how they were doing post this huge tragedy. But it taught me how to be a great reporter. It taught me how to kind of deal with uncomfortable stories. Yeah. So that was a really great training ground.
Yeah. And then what was your next move?
Next, I was at Newsweek.
And then, were you at Vogue?
No. So the Vogue thing happened. So, okay. So I went from New York Magazine to Newsweek, and then I got a job at Real Simple Magazine. I was a researcher reporter there.
Which one?
Real Simple.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I was a researcher reporter there for 4 years, and while I was there, I was like, okay, fashion is what I want to do, not beauty, not politics, but fashion. And for whatever reason, office politics, I just didn't get into the fashion department. And so I started my blog, Fashion Bomb Daily, which, you know, we all know about now, but I started it while I was still working at Real Simple. And it got to this point where I was like, I'm spending my whole lunch break updating this blog, and you know, I'm stealing away to go to Fashion Week when I should be at my desk, and then like people started to recognize me on the train, and I was like, this is too much, you know. And so it's like, I have this degree in French. I've always wanted to live in France for longer than 3 months over the summer. France is known for fashion. Everybody's telling me, like, meanwhile, I had applied to Vogue, I had applied to Harper's Bazaar, I had applied to Marie Claire. They all told me no, or they didn't respond to me. And so I was like, if I need to break into fashion by starting at the bottom as an intern, then I will do that. And I moved to Paris. And, you know, it took me 1.5 years before I got my internship at Paris Vogue. And all the while, I was updating Fashion Bomb. So I would say Fashion Bomb was really kind of born while I was in Paris, because I was bored. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have anything to do. Focus on my blog and figure out how to make it profitable. So that's where it was born. And then by the end of my time there, I did intern at Paris Vogue.
And 2 questions. So why did you start Fashion Bomb, first of all?
I started Fashion Bomb because I wanted to work in fashion. I was told that at the time I didn't have the look. And I'll be honest now, looking back, I probably didn't have the look. You know what I mean? Like, my style is more like, I'm very conservative. I used to
But Claire, listen, a lot of times it's not about the look, it's about the passion, and which you had, the passion and the heart of it. And you had all that. So, you know what I mean? So it's not always about the look, and the look can be evolved, if you, as you guys post today, people's evolution, Zendaya's evolution as a, the look is, like, to me, not the most important thing, obviously. It's the heart and the passion. You're very successful in that field now, so, I mean,
yeah,
anyway.
I know, but for whatever reason, in that space where I was in, it just wasn't, like, I would always be like, okay, can you create a position for me as a fashion reporter, or can I transition over to the fashion department? And we did have this issue where it was like there was one Black girl already on staff who was like the fashion girl, and there could only be one Black fashion girl at the magazine. That's just what it was. And so, I was like, let me go, because there's no place for me here. And and that's really why I started it. I started it out of a love for fashion, a love for writing. I'm a shopaholic. I've been a shopaholic since I was in junior high school. And somebody recommended I start a blog. And at first I really wasn't with the idea, but I started to do it and I started to like it. And then I started to see that more and more people were visiting. I remember one day, like, I looked and it was like 300 people had come and visited my website, and I was like, who are these people? But it was just like, it was encouraging and it kept growing. So it was just initially one of those things where it was my passion, and this was way before blogging was popular, way before people were, way before influencers, before Twitter, before Instagram. I had this blog spot and I just poured all of this energy into it. And I remember, doing the Met Gala recap by myself. And I wrote this in one of my journals I still have. And I was like, I hope that one day this pays off, because I'm just up. I mean, even still to this day, the Met Gala is like one of those nights. It's like, it's going to be a long night. But I was doing it by myself. And I was just like, I hope that all this hard work pays off. And it did.
And it did, exactly. So what was your Vogue experience like? Was it Devil Wears Prada, or what was it, what was it like for you?
So Paris Vogue was different. I wouldn't say it was Devil Wears Prada, because in Paris, the magazine was totally separate from the website. They did not interact at all. And the website was kind of like the ugly stepchild to the magazine. And so I would make suggestions like, we should do a daily outfit diary of Karine Rothfeld or Emmanuel Alt, and they were like, they don't talk to us. And I was like, what? But it was kind of a Devil Wears Prada situation. I was dealing with an editor who I think was intimidated by me. A lot of my stories were killed. Like, I did this whole interview with Serena Williams, and I worked so hard on it. And even the fact that Serena Williams would give us an interview was great. This is before Serena was on the cover of Vogue, before everything. But obviously she always had this passion for fashion. And she was just like, no, we're just not going to publish it. And I was like, what? It was continuous, hateration. She would call me a nobody, standing outside of the gates of Fashion Week. So my job, because I'm not a native French speaker, a lot of the times I was in the streets carrying a camera, taking pictures for their street look. And it was just like a very kind of rough job. I had to wear speakers, and I was just out there with the camera around my neck and a folder full of release forms, and I would just go up to people and try to get as many as I could. I would say overall it was a great experience, but I did have some situations where it was just like, yo, this girl is not feeling me and I don't know what to do.
Well, it sounds to me like you were pretty much always overqualified for all of these jobs, and they weren't giving you the opportunities, basically. That's what I'm taking from, something you were always, first of all, it sounds like you were ambitious and willing to do any work that you could in a great way, and that you were always overqualified, and that you were, you have a real passion for this. So, you mean?
Yeah, and I remember at the end, because I love living in Paris.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would probably still be there. But at the end of my internship, I had a few meetings with the editorial director of Condé Nast France and of their web properties, and he was just like, no. You know, there's no space for you here. He was like, we do have a position open as like a social media manager of our Facebook page, but you don't want to do that. And I was like, yes, I do. I do want to do that. But, you know, it was over. And the beautiful thing, for every rejection that I receive and for every door that's closed, it opens up a new wonderful door, you know?
Yeah.
Because literally, I think it was a week or two, or maybe it was the same week that I was leaving Paris, I got my first big check from blogging. Amazing. And I went to the Christian Louboutin store. I bought my first pair of Christian Louboutins.
I know you did. Listen, I know you.
Yes,
I know you.
and I like went to the northern France, and I was ordering all this champagne, and I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, everything opened up for me after that. And sometimes it's like you want something, but it's simply not meant for you. And you'd be surprised that God actually has something bigger in store for you that you could have never imagined. So that's really kind of been the story of my life. Even when I got back to New York, I remember that I was sending in my resume to Vogue. I sent in my resume to Vogue several times, and Anna actually responded to me. Shout out to Anna. She did respond to me. But I remember when I came back home from Paris and I sent this email, and her assistant responded and was like, you can go to human resources. And I started crying because I wanted to meet Anna Wintour, right? And I went to my mom, and she was like, why are you crying? You are making enough money for you to live off of right now, and you don't need them. And I was like, light bulb went off.
That just gave me the chills right now. That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, honestly, if I had worked at a Vogue, then I wouldn't have been making as much as I would be now. I probably wouldn't be able to be like in front of the brand. I would have to be kind of like, you know, part of the Vogue brand. You can't really, I mean, I guess you can stand out as like an influencer in your own way, but it seems like everybody who works there is kind of like low key and they're just doing their work. And if you know fashion, then you know Tim Blanks and you know Sally Singer, like you know who they are, but they're very like low key. And I think that ultimately the path that has opened up for me, even though it has been difficult at times, like it has been the best for me. You know. Well,
Claire, also, if you would have worked at Vogue, you wouldn't have been able to impact and influence the way that you have. You mean you would have been, you know, you would have not had the, you know, the influence there to influence the way you really have on your own. You mean, think about, you know, how influential you've been over the past decade or so. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. I mean, like, listen, Serena, I don't know Serena Williams' apology, but I apologize to Serena and her team because I was pushing for the Serena Williams story to come out, and Serena, she loves Paris. I think she has a home there. She speaks French. Like, she loves fashion, and for whatever reason, like I took my time and I edited this piece and it was killed, and I didn't know why. And then finally, you know, later, many years later, they're finally letting her on Vogue. But it's like people have the power to stop your ideas, to stop like you introducing the world to these great stars that should be acknowledged. So I am grateful that I have the power to say yes or no.
Well, you know, I believe at a certain point, and we'll get into this later, but, you know, Fashion Bomb was kind of breaking a lot of people in a great way. You were introducing people to the world that went on to become really successful. But, okay, so your blog is becoming really popular. You don't take the job at Vogue. And what years is that? What year is that? Like around
2008.
Yeah, so that's when, like, I think Fashion Bomb was kind of like, I became familiar with it. And it kind of like, to me, it kind of, what year did you start it?
I started in 2010. No, I'm lying. It was 2000. No, I started in 2006, and it was around 2010 when I things started to, like, when I was able to blog professionally. I started in 2006. I moved to Paris in 2008, and I was back in New York in 2000.
Got it.
Yeah.
So 2010, but that's when I think, you know, that's kind of when I became familiar. I think a lot of us became familiar around that time because I think it was like you know, it was a slow burn from 2006 to 2010, but then all of a sudden it just skyrocketed, I think, you know. But also the timing of everything. People, I think, were really thirsty to see what people were wearing. That kind, you know, it was a really, you know, the timing of everything was right. Plus, you were doing something extremely unique. I mean, I'm always amazed to this day, and I've told you many times that, you know, there'll be a picture of Gabrielle Union walking down the street, and literally 10 minutes later, you write what it is. Like, how do you guys find it? Like, I'm still amazed at that right now to this day. But you mean,
you know, we have a really great team, and I never want to take full credit for what we do now.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Zendaya style evolution, and that's actually something that one of our big contributors wrote. Her name is Kathleen. She's out of Brazil. Like, two of our contributors are out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But it's a mixture of me being able to identify outfits, people on my team being able to identify outfits, and now we are able to hit up Gabrielle Union and be like, hey girl, what are you wearing? And she knows we're legit and she's following us, so she'll respond, you know. And so it's this wonderful thing that we've built up, great relationships with stylists, great relationships with celebrities who will, you know, 9 times out of 10, sometimes they keep the information to themselves, but a lot of times they will give us that exclusive scoop, because there are so many stylists, and this is why I started the Fabbies Awards, but there are so many stylists who are doing great work that don't really get acknowledged for the work that
I agree with you 100%.
And they are creating these stars. Like, a star is kind of nothing without their image, but they're helping them to create this wonderful image. And you know, a star, they don't always have to give credit to their glam team, but we like to give credit to the glam team. So
so Fashion Bomb is taking off, and do you feel that, you know, people were receptive because it was, you know, Fashion Bomb is, you know, a Black-based, you know, fashion blog. Do you think that people were receptive to that, or like, how was the first reaction when it started to become really popular?
I think that we've always had a very strong audience and demographic, people who just rock with us. Because even though back then we were very unique and distinctive, we're still unique and distinctive.
I think you still are to this day. You know what I mean? So
today, like, I love to say everything from the hood to haute couture, and we are really about that life. And like, me being from Atlanta, and like, I love Gucci Mane, I love Keisha Kaur, I love all, like, Candy, all those girls, I love them, you know, and I can relate to them coming from Atlanta and being from the South. And so it's like, of course.
Well, hold on, I'm sorry to cut you off too. So, you know, the reality is, I didn't think about it right now, but you were including those girls in the fashion conversation, and probably a time when they were not included. You know, the way that, like, you know, I guess a Naomi Campbell's always been in the fashion conversation, but including a Candy or a Nene with a Naomi is what you guys were doing very, you know, special, I think. So, you know, right?
Thank you. Yeah. And I don't think that those women will be included in the conversation. It doesn't matter. I mean, not to say that they don't have great style, because they do, but it's still this kind of new awakening that's happening now. And I'm interested to see how things evolve these past few weeks, to see if people are actually going to implement diversity and be more inclusive and show love to everybody, regardless of their background or their skin tone. Like, I'm anxious to see it. But you know, the great thing for me, the side effect for me, is that we're able to have this exclusive on so many amazing people. And so
what, you know, kind of like switching gears a little bit, you saw the Anna Wintour statement that came out yesterday. Did you see it?
I sure did, yeah. And I've been paying attention to Andre Leon Talley's. First of all, I read his book in like 2 days. It was so good. Andre Leon Talley is hands down one of the best fashion writers in the world. And, and his
well, he's so humble. He's surprisingly very humble. I think he's very humble. You mean?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I mean, what do you think of Anna's thing? Do you think it's genuine? Do you think she said it to say it? Like, you know, what's your thoughts on that?
I think everybody, they have time. All of our focus is online. All of our focus is on social media. All of our focus is on the news. And it's like one of those things, unfortunately, with with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and with Ahmaud Arbery, it's like we can't look away. We can't look away anymore. We can't ignore these issues anymore. And it would be incredibly tone deaf for someone like an Anna Wintour not to say something. You know, it's like a lot of people were saying she's been at the helm of Vogue since 1988. So why have you not given a platform to Black creatives? Why? You know, she's admitted, she said, I will state it plainly that we have not done our part to elevate or to give a voice to Black creatives. Okay, but why? What's your reason? That's what we need to know. We don't need an apology. And I do know that things are changing. You know, they literally, I know it's not Condé Nast, but Harper's Bazaar, they recently announced the first Black editor-in-chief in 153 years. Why? Why?
Well, I'm like, you know, so the Anna thing to me, it did feel a little just like a statement. Like there was not a lot of passion behind it, I guess, but, or like, you know, a lot of like, I don't know, authenticity, but, you know, I guess we'll see now. You know, she kind of said that publicly, so she'll be held accountable for it, I think. I mean, that's one good thing. She'll be held accountable for it now, but you have a great point. Why? Why hasn't it happened in 33 years? You know, like,
it's like too little too late. People have already, I mean,
you're right.
You know, I'm a huge advocate for digital media. I'm a huge advocate for social media. And the social media and digital media have filled in the cracks that Vogue has left wide open.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, who cares?
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Like it's kind of an old model. It's like an old way of doing things, if you think about it. You mean, but then think of Edward Eddingfeld. You know, how long has he been at Vogue? A couple of years, 2-3 years? I don't know.
Yeah,
you might know.
I think 2 or
about 3 years, let's say. And to be honest, it made a huge difference. I saw a huge difference. Didn't you? Like, you know, it's like that was so impactful. You know, I mean, having, you know, I don't know a lot about that situation, like how he got the job or who, you know.
Well, if you watch the September issue, Edward Eddingfold is all up and through it. He's, I think, aside from Andre, the only other Black man that I could, or a person of African descent that I could see in the September issue. And so, you know, he's in the family fold. And honestly, I do think, I have a feeling that Edward might come over here to American Vogue after.
I think it'd be great. He's lovely too. I've ever met him. He's like a lovely human. He's great. He's
super talented. I remember covering his editorials that he did with ID. He did like a all Black issue that I love. So he's extremely talented, and I consume all of this. So I remember seeing him in the contributors page on Vogue, like way back in the day. So he's kind of next in line.
And then I remember, it's coming back to me right now, seeing Andre Leon Talley's documentary, which I love, by the way. And they said, you know, they'd go to the shows in the 70s and 80s, and it would literally be all white people and Andre. You mean? It'd be like, you know, and he's 6'6" or whatever. Literally, all the front row would be all white people and Andre, and he was the only Black person sitting in the front row in the 70s and 80s, which is, you know.
Yeah,
but,
you know, and I think a lot of people, Black people, people of color, have been like, Andre, why didn't you bring anybody else in? Now, I can't really speak too much on that because I have heard that he has mentored a few people, but, you know, I think that he was in a very kind of precarious and very unique position. But, you know, bringing other people up, it's different strokes for different folks. But I know just from my point of view that because I kind of felt like I had to do things a little bit on my own, like I try my best to give back. So I'm always trying to be the change that I wish to see in the world. And it's just like, okay, we've dealt with the toxicity, we've dealt with the negativity. This is the same way I felt about Fashion Week. The many times I've dealt with Fashion Week and just being like, these people just don't have a heart. Like there's really something wrong here. And it just felt like, it felt so negative so many times, and I'm like, there needs to be some light, and there needs to be. You're
right. That's a great way to say it too, because you know, I don't even barely enjoy fashion shows at this point. You know, like it's such a like, you know, unless it's the blondes or someone that we're good friends with. You know, years ago I was like, it's not for me. You know, it's not like it is. It's based off of like, false elitistness. You know, I've had, you know, conversations with someone's assistant, and they're so crazy and arrogant. Like, you are someone's assistant. You need to calm down and act like a human. You know, like, there's a really weird thing going on there. And you said it more eloquently than I can, but, you know, it is really negative, basically, a lot of times. You mean?
Yeah, and I would emerge from, let's say, Paris Fashion Week and just be like, why am I always so, like, sad during this time? And I always feel like fashion, especially when I look at you and your fashion, it's supposed to make you happy, and it's supposed to make you dream and make you ooh and ah. It's not supposed to make you feel like insecure or less than or inferior, or like you don't belong. And especially for something like Fashion Bomb, I'm like, y'all know, y'all see me, you know? Like, I think back in the day, it was one of those things where Blogspot, even if I could say, y'all, look at these Google Analytics, there's millions of people visiting us. Millions, we still wouldn't get like in. And now it's like, okay, so now y'all see it on Instagram, like you see the comments, you see like y'all shout us out, you appreciate the love, you send us your press releases. So why, what's the disconnect, really?
Well, again, this is like getting off topic totally, but for me, I decided years ago, I don't like fashion, and I think you do more than I do. I like clothes. I like clothing. You know, fashion is a bit much for me, but clothing is. I love clothing, big time, big time too. It's just, you know. Okay, so getting back to, like, you know, I want to stay kind of on topic, but what are some of the challenges that you have found being a Black woman in fashion, basically, for lack of a better term? So,
just access. You know, like getting in, not even just getting in. Like, I don't go to fashion shows because I want to peacock. Like, I'm going to fashion shows because the same reason any other media organization would want to go to a fashion show. It's timely, it's relevant, it's in your industry. You have a readership that consumes it, that buys from this brand. Like, why getting that seat at the table, I think, has always been elusive. And I really had to come to terms with myself that, you know, you go where you're celebrated and not tolerated, period.
Absolutely.
You go where you're celebrated and not tolerated. And it's also given me the inspiration and motivation to create my own. Like, that is really what I'm on. And I know that that's not for everybody. I know entrepreneurship is not for everybody. It's a struggle. It is a struggle to do your own thing. It's a struggle to get respect. It's a struggle to be taken seriously. It's a struggle for people to, even now, I'm like, nobody's asking me to talk about diversity in fashion. I've been talking about this since 2006. And I see a lot of my colleagues, they're like, oh yeah, go to Business and Fashion as a resource for Black designers. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You know, I love Business of Fashion, and Business of Fashion is very good, but it's just like, you know, when are we going to get acknowledged? But I've learned a long time ago to stop seeking validation outside of myself, and that's not just from the industry, but from anybody. You know, like, I strongly feel that God has given me a unique purpose on this earth, and if it's just me and God, then it's just me and God. And I also do have to acknowledge people like you, and there's so many people that I'm seeing on the feed, like the Island Diva and Claudine Joseph, and so many people who support me, you know, and support Fashion Bomb daily. And it's not always about who says no, but also acknowledging that you do have a really great community and audience, and there are people out there who get it. And so if you can just focus on them, I think that's what I do. And that's
fair. It's beautiful. Everything you're saying is honestly, it's beautiful. You're you know, I've known you a long time. Your evolution and your, you know, the way you think is really beautiful. I have to say that.
You have to, because otherwise you will be mad. And you will be bitter.
You're right.
You will be resentful. And so you kind of have to turn it around. I think for a long time, I was like, yo, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get this job that I want in this industry? And it's just like, God had other plans for you, you know, and you were put here to do something different and to take the road less traveled, and you'll learn great lessons along the way. And I have, so I'm grateful for that.
Well, then, Claire, I said it earlier, you know, you created such a space and a lane for, you know, inclusivity in a way that I don't think I've seen anyone else do. You know, it was you created a space for black fashion in the past 10, 15 years that was not there. You mean at all? Not black fashion. You know, like to celebrate black people in fashion. You mean? So it was such an amazing thing, and you created this lane and space that was needed, and you did that all on your own. So you know, the reality is, like I said, if you would have worked at Vogue, I don't think you'd have had the impact that you created. You have so much more impact when you kind of let God lead your journey. You mean? So you mean?
Yeah, and I'm reading so many accounts from people who've worked at different places and how like toxic those environments were.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm grateful for this journey. So.
No, I'm really proud of you, Claire. I really am. Okay, so getting back to diversity, like, you know, again, talking about fashion shows, you know, for decades, I'll go to fashion shows and I will count the black models. It'll be 1 or 2 black models. Why do you think that is? Like, why, you know, why don't designers use black models, basically? What do you think?
I think they just need somebody to remind them. I think it's human nature to kind of go with what you know and go with what's familiar with you, what's familiar to you, what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I did start to see a change when Bethann Hardison started to do her black back in fashion, or I think it was called Blacks in Fashion talks. I started to see changes with that, and you know, then now we see Joanne Smalls and of course Jordan Dunn and Chanel Iman, like they are kind of the it girls, and of course Naomi continues to work. So yeah, I honestly feel like the model representation has gotten better, but what has not gotten better are the places that are unseen, behind the scenes, people making decisions on advertising campaigns, or people making decisions, like the whole editorial realm for a long time was not diverse, and it still is not. I remember freelancing for InStyle and literally being the only black person in the office, and I was like, yeah,
that's insane.
You know, in this decade, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's interesting because I looked at, I was doing some research today. I was trying to see how many black models had been on the cover of Vogue. I tried to Google it and I couldn't find it. They just said, like, they listed it, but they didn't have the number. And it's mostly celebrities that have been, black celebrities that have been on the covers of Vogue. So like, it's really interesting that they don't even really use black models that often on the cover. You know, like it was like a Beyonce and a Michelle Obama and Oprah. It wasn't that many models.
Yeah.
Like that was my takeaway. So.
Yeah, and now like, we are seeing more black people on the cover of magazines. I think there was I think it was in September that Beyonce was on the cover. It was like maybe 5 or 6 covers with black models on it. But somebody left a comment saying too little, too late. It's like too little, too late.
No, I agree with that. I think that's the tone right now. And then, you know, because I think everybody probably knows that I was doing some research again. The black dollar, they said, is 1.2 trillion annually. Mm-hmm. So, you know, my thing is the disconnect is just insane to me. That, you know what I mean? Like, that why wouldn't people just be inclusive, you know, like in the fashion, you mean? But I think you're right.
Now that it's hurting their pockets, and they're starting.
Yeah, of course. Listen, you hit them where it hurts always. Of course they're going to listen then. But my thing is, I think you're right. You know, these companies are now starting to get, you know, kind of these groups together to kind of like, you know, counsel them on how to be more inclusive, which is, you know, in my opinion, insanity. It should always have been that way. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Like, when just like, you know, they're doing it right now. They had been doing it for the past year or two, but they're doing it right now too. I'm like, oh God, you know, so. But, you know, where do you see this landing? Where do you see this kind of like, how do you see fashion becoming more inclusive, basically?
Well, you know, I'm encouraged by brands like Revolve that we've actually been blogging about for years, like including more influencers. And I plan to reach out to a lot of these brands to consult, to offer some insight if they need some direction and help. And then I'll reach out to them. But I think it's about economic empowerment and economic investment And a lot of these brands just putting their money where their mouth is and not just
Yeah.
putting up a black square and then going back to business. Like, are you
Yeah.
going to be held accountable? And there are so many brands like a Zimmerman that I love, or even a Eugenia Kim. I love Eugenia Kim. Like, I just spend a lot of money on a Eugenia Kim hat. But if I know that you're acting like this behind the scenes, and I'm not going to spend money with you. And that's part of the reason why we started Fashion Bomb Daily Shop, which everybody should come and patronize, because it is full of designers of all shades. But I would say probably 95% of our designers are Black, and they are Black women. And so if our culture and our country really wants to support Black designers, there's a resource right there. Fashion Bomb Daily Shop should be the next big fashion brand. And don't be like, oh, it's Claire. No, we're not gonna. No, support. You know, because we're gonna pour it back into our community, and the money is going to the designers who have been needing economic support for so many years. So just think about where you spend your money and be very intentional with it.
Who are some of the designers right now, I guess, that you want to showcase right now, or that that you like right now? Black designers.
Frances Gray, she's a hat designer. We featured her today. She's in Fashion Bomb Daily Shop. Sai Senko, she has a lot of great printed kimonos and dresses. Oyemwen, she has a tutu pieces. Of course, I mean, I love Ducky Confetti. I love Pyre Moss. I love Fee Noel, Azed Jean-Pierre. We just covered Stella Jean, and there are so many new ones that I'm discovering. I love Lisa Fulawio from Jewel by Lisa. There's so many. Rare Jeans, Andrea Iyama. I am obsessed with Hanifa. Have you seen Hanifa? They just did a 3D fashion show, and there was this huge hubbub over it because Forbes said another brand did the 3D fashion show first, and they're like, But Hanifa's awesome. Milano Di Rouge, Jay Bailey. Like, there are so many. And we have been covering them for so many years. And I'm excited to see what this kind of shift in consciousness and the shift in culture portends for small brands like that.
And then how could people get involved in supporting this in general? Besides going to your blog, or your website, which they should, what are some other ways that you think people can really get behind it and support it in a real way? You mean?
I think it's as simple as a social media post, or patronizing any of the designers that I mentioned. Writing about them, spreading the word. I think those are just a few ways. I mean, there are ways from small to large. Donating to the GoFundMe's, to actually patronizing Black businesses. And I really appreciate you reaching out to me about this, because you have a wonderful voice. I'm sure that your family is very, they're down, but maybe you have some friends, some cousins that you could talk to and have some uncomfortable discussions with. But I think those are a few ways.
Yeah, no, it's true. This has been a really interesting couple weeks, I think, for everybody. But so how can we support you specifically, Claire? How can we support you?
Well, Claire Sulmers, follow me, ClaireSulmers.com. If y'all hear of any talks about diversity, any huge social media things, we have a voice. We want to be heard. I've been doing this for years. It kind of it hurts a little. Not a little, but it's it feels like the movement that I've been doing for years is being co-opted a little bit. Not in general, but I'm in the fashion industry. I'm can I get on the mic? Can I grab the mic? But, it's cool.
Well, Claire, listen, but you know what, Claire? Typical to your, to who you are. Start it yourself. Do it yourself. Do your own live. Do a panel and do your own live. You mean do your own live about this and have a panel of people, have Ty, have everybody on it. You should do your own thing.
That's what God continues to show me, that I can't, I gotta just do it myself.
That's the point. Listen, you're right. You have so much knowledge on this topic. Do your own thing. I will help you in any way. Do your own thing.
Yes, and if Outside opens again, we do have We do plan to do something in September. We aspire to have some panel discussions on diversity. We aspire to have our own fashion-centric event. It's really hard to plan right now because we don't know what the state of the world will be at that time. But we're going to continue to do what we do, and appreciate everybody who's tuned in right now. Appreciate you, Damon. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Congratulations on your book. By the way, you had a book come out, what, a year ago, was it?
My book has been out
2 years?
A couple years, yeah. But I'm working on a new one.
Good. Now. And what are your personal focuses and plans for the next quarter, 6 months, year? Book? 2?
Moving to LA.
Girl, you've been saying that for freaking 3 years.
I don't care. I'm coming.
Good, come.
I'm coming to LA.
Good.
You and Ty can throw my welcome party.
We will, for sure.
But moving into TV, and increasing to just increasing exposure for what we're doing. The wonderful thing is that, a lot of people are like, okay, well, who are the Black designers that we should patronize? And I'm like, well, actually, we have a whole category here that goes back several years, over 6 years, and we have a whole Black History Month section on Black designers. So, it's not one of those things where it's just one post and I throw it up and these are the Black designers you should know, but it's like we have this whole body of work, and I'm really grateful for that and for that archive. And so
you should be really proud of that. And then who supports you, out of curiosity? Like who does support you? Like what celebrities have really gotten behind you, or designers? I'm just curious, like who does support you?
So many people. I was actually going to do a post. Philip Block, he was on here before.
Yep, love him.
Missed all the Jays, Jay Manuel and Jay Alexander, Beth Ann Hardison, Terry Agans. There are so many people, and I know it's probably human nature to be like, this big editor didn't say hi to me, but it's like there are so many wonderful people that I am so grateful that I have in my corner. Robert Verdi is another great one. All these people, Kim Blackwell, all these people that came to the Fabbies, and I do hope that the Fabbies will go off this year, December 12th. And it'll be a short year because basically most of this year has been.
I'll come this year. Why couldn't I come? I couldn't come this year for some reason. I couldn't come, remember?
Yeah, well, Puff Diddy's party was like a day after.
I was going to LA, I think, for Diddy's birthday
last year, and so everybody was like,
I'll come this year, I promise.
And I was like,
okay, what was your website called again, where they can buy things?
fashionbombdailyshop.com. And these are all designers. We have sunglasses, we have shoes, we have kimonos, we have t-shirts, we have jeans, we have everything, and we're going every day. We just we signed Romeo Hunt. We're expanding. Samantha Black is going to be joining us soon, God willing. We have a lot of people, and there's no reason why Fashion Bomb Daily Shop couldn't be the next Barney's, why it couldn't be the next Bergdorf Goodman. It really takes our community really coming together, and it is about our community as well. Our community being like, okay, girl, like let's do this. Let's do this together, and let's.
Well, it's a good time. It's a good time, I think, for that, because people are really interested in supporting Black businesses and Black fashion right now. So it's a good time.
Yeah.
It should have always been a good time, but right now is a moment.
Time. The time is now. Yeah.
All right, my darling. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up, or?
No, just stay encouraged, everyone. I know it's a very tough time in our nation, and a lot of things are shifting and changing, but I'm like always so positive, and I do hope and pray that out of all of this darkness, something beautiful will materialize out of it. So.
Amazing. Well, Claire, thank you very much. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Kind of thinking about your whole trajectory of, from when from college till now. You are definitely living your purpose. You are making a major impact on the world, period. The fashion world, but the world, period. and I just really am proud of you and love you. So congratulations.
Thank you,
And
Damon.
let me know anything we can do. I can do or anyone can do to support you or anything you're doing, because I think that's what it's about right now. It's about supporting and sharing information. So
Thank you. And let me know
right.
how I can download this later, because I want to share.
Yeah, God. You know you. You're gonna text me right now. You're gonna bug me for the next 12 hours. I know you. All right, bye, girl. Love you. Thank you, boo.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.